What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Smash JT. And before we go anywhere, thank you so much for clicking on this video. I know it's not drama related or even controversial in the least bit, but it is talking about a video game that I think after you watch this, you're probably going to be glad you did. Before we get into it, if it's your first time on the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the bell notifications to make sure you do not miss an upload. With that out of the way, Superliminal, out now on Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One, and it's been out on Steam for a while, but it just came out recently on the major consoles. $20 MSRP USD, and wow. Like, all I can say is wow. I played this game hoping for the best, and it still exceeded my expectations. It's an indie title, so I go into it with managing my expectations. There are so many indie games that have been sent to me over the years that I pick up for like 5, 10, 15 minutes. They lose my interest, they don't really hook me, and I feel like they're just dragging on and it's just a waste shovelware or useless time. I don't have the time to be thrown into these games. Superliminal was showed off in a Nintendo Direct Nindies, and I was just like, oh my god, okay, that looks like a different kind of game. A first-person puzzler. The perspective reminded me a lot of the Portal games, and something you're going to hear me talk about a lot in this video is Portal, because while playing this game, if you've played Portal before, it is impossible not to make the connection. While a lot of people who haven't played Portal look at it as a gimmicky type of thing where you have a gun and you can shoot the wall and come through another way and try to get through the puzzles one way or another, actually playing through the Portal games, you realize that there's a storyline behind it, and it's creepy and it's unnerving and it makes you wonder where it all leads to. And the same can be said for Superliminal. Initially, I thought it was just going to be a straight up first-person puzzler game where you try to use the perspectives of objects to your advantage to progress throughout the game. Which you kinda do, but the game starts to throw you for a loop about halfway through it that completely shifts the entire dynamic of everything you got to know from the beginning up until that point. But with this game, I was hooked from the get-go and couldn't put it down. But let's get into the gameplay and the dynamics of what this game actually involves. The forced perspective narrative is something that I was like, that's interesting. How does that actually work in reality? When I have the game in my hands and I'm playing it, how does the game know how big an object is supposed to be based off of where you're holding it and all these other questions that I had with it? And while playing the game, it was a masterpiece in how they handled the forced perspective. You could grow items and shrink them just based off of how you were holding them in the environment surrounding it. So a small block of cheese would turn into a gigantic ramp so you could reach over a wall and get to a doorway and progress to the next area. Or tiny dice on the ground you could pick up to weigh down a switch on the ground that would open a door. There are tons of different mini puzzles throughout each area that you really have to rack your brain and sit there and think, how do I overcome this obstacle based off of what is given to me? And sometimes it's not so obvious what's given to you. You have to search the environment to find it and then use that in a way that you wouldn't have even thought of once you first found it in order to move on to the next area. And in that kind of lied an issue with the game that I had is the objects that you needed to progress sometimes weren't obvious, and you found yourself just going around the room clicking everything to see what you could actually interact with and what would not interact with. In some rooms, what you could interact with before, like an exit sign, you couldn't interact with on the next room, even though it was the same exact object, which was a little bit frustrating, but also it worked with the flow of the storyline, which I will say it's not really giving anything away because they talk about it at the beginning, but the game is basically taking place in a dream where anything is possible. So you have to kind of go with that narrative and realize that not everything is going to make sense. A lot of the puzzles you need to solve are nonsensical, but they do make sense in a certain light. Once you figure it out, you have that aha moment. Oh, okay, that's what this is for. That's where I used this piece. That's why that was there. Okay, makes sense now. But initially, going through each of these portions of the game, I was just like, okay, what am I able to interact with here and what am I not? And then how can I utilize what I'm able to interact with at this portion of the game? And similar to Portal, it wasn't just straightforward, you go one room to the next room to the next room. There were weird portions of the game where you could actually really break the boundaries on purpose, and it shows like this back hallway, and you start to wonder, is this a dream, or is this some sort of weird science experiment that I'm being tested in? I do wish the storyline explored more of that area. I feel like it was just kind of touching on things that could have been amazing, groundbreaking, storyline driven stuff. But because of the scope of the game and being an indie title, I don't think they were able to explore that area as much as they probably would have liked to. There were hints of some shadiness going on or potential nefarious actions from other people, but it doesn't get fully realized. It just shows you stuff as you're going through the game, and you wonder, your mind starts to put pieces together on what's going on around you. And then it doesn't really tie it together at the end, at least with the playthrough that I had. Maybe when I play through it again, I'll find something else that introduces an entirely different area of the game that I didn't see. That was the part of the game that I did like, is there was exploration. It didn't just feel like it was go to one room, go to the next room, go to the next room. It was go from one room to, oh, I can go this way, or there's another divergent path that I'm not supposed to go down, but it exists. Let me progress through here to see if there's something over here. Now, I'm not sure if that's the only way you can go, or if the game was meant to be, because once you go that way, the storyline continues and goes on to the next level. So maybe that was the right way to go, maybe it wasn't, but either way, it felt like there was exploration available in this game. As far as the audio and the sound department, it was perfect for the atmosphere to fit the narrative of the story, where it was piano, light piano music often, and sometimes it was like this hollow, ghostly sound, because the game feels like a dream, and you're starting to wonder if it's reality or not, and these different sounds that are taking place throughout it do fit the game's narrative perfectly.
Warning. Dr. Pierce is frantically...
The graphics are really nothing to write home about. They're very bland, very basic, very plain. But that's okay, because it's a puzzler game. I don't expect the craziest Resident Evil or Final Fantasy VII Remake style graphics with this kind of indie puzzler. You don't need great graphics for a great puzzle game, and this game proves that. It's not as well thought out and drawn out as far as the storyline and the graphics go like Portal was, but it definitely approaches that realm, and that's saying something in its own right, because Portal is one of my favorite games of all time, and just to mention this game in the same breath and say it wasn't that bad is saying something. One of the biggest issues that I had with the game is it's too short. I literally played this through and beat it in about 2 play sessions. I mean, I think 3 if you count one where I just picked it up, loaded it, and tried it out real quick. But all in all, I beat it in about 3 play sessions. It was about 5.5 hours all together, and it was fun. It was a blast. It just ended too quickly. Overall, the game is a must-play for anybody who even liked the Portal series. If that was one of the games where you played and you're like, oh, that was a fun, enjoyable first-person experience puzzler game, then you have to play Superliminal. And I will say, based off the price, $20 is a little bit high based off of what indie games are. If you love Portal, if it's one of your favorite games ever, $20 is well justified for Superliminal. If you only liked Portal, then I'd wait for a sale on Superliminal, but definitely either way, play it, you will not regret it. In fact, I'm at the point right now where this game was so good that I'm confused as to why nobody else on YouTube that I know is talking about it. It is that good. It's truly one of the best games I've played in 2020 personally. In fact, about 3/4 of the way through this game, I'm like, holy crap, this has a chance to be my game of the year. And then it just ends. And I'm just like, oh, if it just had a little bit more gameplay, if it just lasted a little bit longer, if the storyline had more oomph to it, if there was just more to tie it together at the end, there was so much potential here. And again, I keep going back to, not to make excuses for it, but it's an indie game, it's a limited studio with their resources, and as far as I know, I don't know what they've done before, so this is a good entry into that kind of realm. And I am definitely looking forward to whatever Pillow Castle makes next, because this proves that they belong in the gaming space in making games. This was a fantastic experience, and so far definitely in my top 5 games that I've played in 2020, and something that a lot of people, like I said, if you enjoy Portal, definitely need to play. Anyways, I'm going to leave the video right there. I'm not going to go too far into any more spoilers because the story that exists is good enough, but it's just very surface level. I would have liked to see a lot more with the story be developed, and I feel like that was kind of left on the cutting board table with playing this game. A great experience and definitely something everyone needs to try, but also could have been an amazing experience, something that transcends the greatest games of all time. If they just made it a bit longer, I'm talking like at least 3 to 4 hours longer, make it a solid 10-hour game experience, then it would be great. But again, it's a budget title, $20, you're paying for 5.5, 6 hours. And if it's your first time playing a puzzler like this, it's probably going to take you 10 to 12 or longer hours to beat it because you're not used to the type of puzzles that were in Portal, and you'll probably struggle a lot more with how to solve a lot of the riddles in this game. For me personally, I struggled with some of the later puzzles in the Portal games, but since I played those and figured out how to do them, I took that experience with me with this game and was able to more easily solve a lot of the puzzles that otherwise would have definitely been roadblocks for me that I would have needed to look up how to get through if I didn't know what to do previously. Anyways, I'm going to leave the video right there. Interested to hear what you guys have to say about Superliminal, and if you're interested in checking it out. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, you stay smashing.